centuries, they have lurked in the shadows, pillaging and causing genocide. Even as recently as 9/11, they have been able to laugh at the ignorant masses. They have burdened the deaf and deaf. Well, this is the end of the line for the psychopathic element. The collapse of the dollar and their desperation to hold empire together will show to the world their evil plots. This will be the first crisis and the largest one that will be laid bare for the entire world to see. Russia, China, Iran, and many other nations are well aware of how this debt and death paradigm works and are actively working to build a world without the dollar. Putin successfully outplayed Obama in Syria and took the Crimea without firing a single shot. China will soon have the world's largest economy and holds trillions of US dollars. Their massive accumulation of gold and their shot at the next world reserve currency will be formidable. Iran has suffered for over 50 years under the U.S. aggression since the coup of Mohammad Mossadegh, including the U.S. backing Saddam Hussein, the Iran-Iraq war that cost Iran over 1 million young men. Germany has fallen for 2 world wars started by the Anglo-Americans and has recently been denied their sovereign gold from the Federal Reserve. Germany's financial regulator, BaFin, forced Deutsche Bank out of the 117-year-old silver fix, stating that, quote, the precious metals manipulation is worse than the LIBOR rigging scandal, unquote, which is estimated at $800 trillion. While no nation will come out of this unscathed, these nations that have walked away from the dollar will be the first to come back and come out of this crisis much stronger than their current relative position today. So too will those individuals who also walk away first. They will not be immune to the collapse, but will recover the quickest and end up with generational wealth. While we do not expect a mass awakening in the United States, we do believe that the anger phase will lay waste to the current social and political order. American consumerism will be dead forever as this new consciousness realizes the consequences of waste. The puppet politicians and CEOs will be sacrificed to the angry hordes of disillusioned Americans. The real power will slink into the shadows with their gold bars. Wait, put forward a new group of collectivist messiahs. Though many will have a plausible deniability of their crimes against humanity, the days of divine retribution are coming. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord. The schemes and plots that have been hidden from humanity will be revealed for all to see. The apocalypse literally means an uncovering, a disclosure of knowledge of something that has been kept secret from humanity. We can think of nothing more important that has been hidden than the psychopathic element that has convulsed humanity to death and death. The anger phase will bring about this great purge, and there will be no place to hide once it starts. All sins will be revealed, and Judgment Day is coming. We believe that the end of the line will be tough, and also that it is vitally necessary if humanity is going to sober up from this sickness, just like a drunk that must hit rock bottom in order to face reality and then take personal responsibility. So too must our society. For far too long, our society has enabled the worst in humanity have been living in a something-for-nothing dream. With the collapse, there will be no other choice but to get back to what is natural, real, and what works. After the fires have burned out, a new consciousness will grow out of the ashes of the old. Everything that is popular in this paradigm will be dropped like a bad habit in the next. Generations to come will look at the insanity of this paradigm with curiosity, and those that were prophetic enough to walk away from that insanity will be rewarded. A new consciousness will break away from the collective psychopathy of the old paradigm and form a new, abundant individualism consciousness. We will protect all individuals from collective tyrannies. We will cherish the gifts and talents of the young, not saddle them with debt. We will appeal to the highest and best self in humanity. We will love out differences and share in our commonalities. We will seek abundant, resonating people. We will seek to create sustainable solutions. The end of the line is coming. Are you ready?
Ain't nobody could be ready, man. What the fuck you talking about? Nobody ready. That's just part of the document.
There is the story of a New England farmer with a small pond in his pasture. Each summer, a group of wild duck would frequent that pond. Try as he would, the farmer could never catch one. No matter how early in the morning he approached, no matter how carefully he constructed a blind, or what kind of duck call he tried, somehow those crafty birds sensed the danger and managed to be out of range. Of course, when fall arrived, the ducks headed south, and the farmer's craving for a duck dinner only intensified. Then he got an idea. In the spring, he started scattering corn along the edge of the pond. The ducks liked corn, and since it was always there, they soon gave up on dipping and foraging for food on their own.
Chocolate.
After a while,
It's all
they became
chocolate.
used to the farmer
I
and
mean,
began
it's
to
all
trust him.
strawberry. No chocolate.
They can see he was their
I
benefactor,
told them all
and
chocolate
now they
and
walked close
strawberry.
enough to him with no sense of fear. Life was so easy
They
they
want a
forgot how to
strawberry out there.
fly.
I'm gonna call them up.
But soon it was unimportant,
They want a
because
strawberry
now
out
they
there.
were
Call
so
them up.
fat they
That's what
couldn't have
you-
gotten off the water even if
You
they
grab me
tried.
two from here.
Fall came and the ducks stayed. Winter came and the pond froze.
You see, you grab
The
two out
farmer
there.
built a shelter to keep them warm. The ducks were happy because they didn't have to fly. The farmer was especially happy because each week, all winter long, he had a delicious duck dinner. That is the story of the America's Great Depression and our future. Wild horses used to roam the countryside free and
no talking to
independent.
It's gonna be on strawberry.
The same process man used to domesticate the horse is the same process the elite have done to enslave humanity.
Boil them. Boil them still.
Yeah.
When you go over there to the immigrant countries, they are cutting off the heads of the soldiers of our America.
Please remain standing for our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see and the rockets? Uh-oh. I'll make up for it now.
Take that raghead shit ass on. Don't boo her. Fuck that raghead ass on. Fuckers dying over a fucking flag. They don't give a fuck about them. Some bullshit.
Oh, see, can you see fighting on early light?
Whatsoever we say, and the dawn light still
Whose bright stars and bright stars
uses arrows spy.
and the heavenly eye.
For the rabbit
Wheresoever leave fleeting.
and the rockets red. From bursting in there. Get real tonight. That our flag was still there. Stay does that star-spangled
other country could have invaded Iraq, hardly knowing the difference between a Sunni and a Shiite, and still managed to successfully set off a brutal sectarian civil war and ethnic cleansing campaign between the two sects that would subsequently go regional, whose casualty counts have tipped into the hundreds of thousands, and which is now bouncing back on Iraq? What other great power would have launched its invasion of plans to garrison that country for decades and with the larger goal of subduing neighboring Iran?
And by that time, we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, are we still going to war with Iraq? And he said, oh, it's worse than that. This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
Because everybody wants to go to Baghdad, but real men want to go to Tehran.
You know, each voice bomb Iran.
Only to slink away 8 years later, leaving behind a Shiite government in Baghdad that actually supports Iran. And in what other country could leaders viewing these events and knowing our part in them have been so imbued with goodness as to further draw red lines and to contemplate sending in the missiles and bombers again, this time on Syria and possibly even Iran?
I'll tell you one thing, unlike America, Israel seems to be able to fight wars very quickly. What is your secret? Because we don't seem to have the hang of that.
The secret is that we have America.
Yeah.
And America, see, the point is that Israel...
Shut up.
What other country could magnanimously spend $4 to $6 trillion on two, quote, good wars, unquote, in Afghanistan and Iraq against lightly armored minority insurgencies without winning or accomplishing a single thing? And that's not even counting the funds sunk into the global war on terror and sideshows in places like Pakistan, Somalia, and Yemen, or the staggering sums that, since 9/11, have been poured directly into the national security state.
How dare you?
How many countries possessing the finest fighting force in the history of the world have engaged in endless armed conflicts and interventions from the 1960s on and, except in unresisting Panama and tiny Grenada, never managed to definitively win anything?
How dare you?
And talking about exceptional records, what other military could have brought an estimated 3.1 million pieces of equipment ranging from tanks and Humvees to porta potties, coffee makers, and computers into Iraq and then transported most of them out again while destroying the rest or turning them over to the Iraqis? Standard, the U.S. military is now drawing down its forces and has already destroyed, quote, more than 170 million pounds worth of vehicles and other military equipment, unquote. What other force would have decided ahead of time to shred, dismantle, or simply discard $7 billion worth of equipment, about 20% of what it had brought into the country? The general in charge proudly calls this, quote, the largest retrograde mission in history, unquote. To put that in context, what other military would be capable of carrying a total consumer society right down to PXs, massage parlors, boardwalks, internet cafes, and food courts to war? Let's give credit where credit is due. We're not talking about retrograde here, folks. We're talking about an exceptional retrograde. What other military could, in a bare few years in Iraq, have built a staggering 505 bases ranging from combat outposts to one the size of small American towns with their own electricity generators, water purifiers, fire departments, fast food restaurants, and even miniature golf courses at a cost of unknown billions of dollars?
There are known knowns. There are things we know we know. We also know there are known unknowns.
Profits cannot account for $2.3 trillion in transactions in 1 year alone.
It is,
So that is to say, we know there's some things we do not know. But there are also unknown unknowns. The ones we don't know, we don't know.
How dare you?
those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere. Nope, no weapons over there. Maybe under here.
There are known knowns.
And then, only a few years later, abandoned all of them, dismantling some, turning others over to the Iraqi military, or in ghost towns, and leaving yet others to be looted and stripped. And what other military in the same time period, thousands of miles away in Afghanistan, could have built more than 450 bases, sometimes even hauling in the building materials, and now be dismantling them in the same fashion? If those aren't exceptional, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what is.
I'll probably say it 3 more times. See, in my line of work, you got to keep repeating things over and over and over again for the truth to sink in, to kind of catapult the propaganda.
In a world where it's hard to get anyone to agree on anything, the covert campaign of drone strikes that George W. Bush launched and Barack Obama escalated in Pakistan's tribal areas stand out. These hundreds of strikes not only caused significant numbers of civilian casualties, including women and children, while helping to destabilize a sometime ally, but it almost miraculously created public opinion unanimity. Opinion polls there indicate that at Ripley's Believe It or Not style, 97% of Pakistanis consider such strikes, quote, a bad thing, unquote.
Do you want to be safer or do you want to feel good beating people up? Because those are the two choices.
I don't want to know what the American CIA is doing. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
And what other power could have secretly and illegally kidnapped at least 136 suspected terrorists? Some, in fact, innocent of any such acts or associations.
That boy turned around and had a cop
from
tell me to
backlands
knock
of the
him
planet.
off.
And what other nation could have mustered a coalition of the willing of 54 countries to lend a hand in its quote rendition unquote operations? We're talking about more than a quarter of the nations on planet Earth, people.
And you are dead.
And that isn't all. Oh no, that isn't all. Can you imagine another country capable of setting up a genuinely global network of black sites and borrowed prisons with local torturers on hand, places to stash and abuse kidnappees and other prisoners in locations ranging from Poland to Thailand, Romania to Afghanistan, Egypt and Uzbekistan to U.S. Navy ships in the high seas, not to speak of that jewel in the crown of the offshore prisons, Guantanamo?
I will close Guantanamo.
Such illegality on such a global scale simply can't be matched. And don't even get me started on torture. It's fine for us to take pride in our exceptionalist tradition, but you don't want to pour it on, do you?
The answer is absolutely not.
How about the way the State Department, to the tune of $750 million, constructed in Baghdad the largest, most expensive embassy compound on the planet, a 104-acre Vatican-sized citadel with 27 blast-resistant buildings, an indoor pool, basketball courts, and a fire station, which was to operate as a command and control center for our ongoing garrisoning of the country and the region. Now, the garrisons are gone, and the embassy at Staff Cut is a global white elephant, but what an exceptional elephant. Think of it as a modern American pyramid, a tomb in which lie buried dreams of establishing a Pax Americana in the greater Middle East.
USA!
Match that sort of memorial thousands of miles from home.
I respect your idealism.
Or what about this? Between 2002 and 2011, the United States poured at least $51 billion into building up a vast Afghan military. Another $11 billion was dedicated to the task in 2012, with almost another $6 billion planned for 2013. Washington has also sent in a legion of trainers, tasked with turning that force into an American-style fighting outfit. At the time Washington began building it up, the Afghan army was reportedly a heavily illiterate, drug-taking, corrupt, and ineffective force that lost one-third to one-half of its personnel to casualties, non-reenlistment, and desertion in any given year. In 2012, the latest date for which we have figures, the Afghan security forces were still a heavily illiterate, drug-taking, corrupt, and inefficient outfit that was losing about one-third of its personnel annually, a figure that may even be on the rise. The United States and NATO allies are committed to spending $4.1 billion annually on the same project after the withdrawal of their combat forces in 2014. Tell me that isn't exceptional.
So we heard from you, you go away. USA! USA! USA!
This is the HTV-2 hypersonic bomb that can travel at 20 times the speed of sound and strike anywhere in the world in under an hour with the impact of a nuclear bomb without the fallout. Each of these bombs costs $69 million and is designed like all other weapons to control others. After it is used, it leaves us poor, other people dead, and more power and profit to those that made it. There are only two kinds of people in this world, those that want to be left alone and those that won't leave you alone. Humanity has spent so much time on how to manipulate the world and relatively no time asking why. Would have humanity been vastly better off if we did not tax, steal, inflate our economic activities to pay for $1 trillion military empire, to dominate the world's resources, to create unlimited debt and power for the elite that control our world? Or should we have just left the world alone, free to pursue whatever desires they wanted to do, and just took care of ourselves? Well, if you're indoctrinated into the belief that you have the right to inflict your view of the world onto others, then this is the weapon for you. You now have the ability to spread debt and death faster than anybody else in the world. You just better hope one day that somebody doesn't think that they have the same right to inflict their version of the world on you. We have a world today that has awesome technical knowledge to be able to develop a $69 million hypersonic autonomous kamikaze bomb that can strike anywhere in the world within minutes. And yet we have a society that cannot become conscious to the fact that they are slaves living depressing, narcissistic lives. Some would say that we need this indoctrination to make the world work, and that squatting on the mushroom and thinking about man's relationship with the universe will never get us to the moon. Well, who cares if we can technically watch a 3D, 80-inch high-definition TV, instantly downloading the latest Kardashian show, dressed in a Prada spacesuit while driving a Mercedes moon buggy on the moon? On your deathbed, will you be thinking about all the technical things that you were able to do? Or the idealistic relationships and passions you did not pursue? I can tell you what Steve Jobs wished for. He wished he could have gotten to know his kids better. I never let schooling get in the way of my education.
It killed Steve Jobs too.
And besides the fact, most of the great
It killed
inventions that improved our quality of life were created by men that had none of this indoctrination. They were free thinkers and tinkerers who loved learning in a non-formalized environment. They pursued their God-given talents and desires for the betterment of others. Jonas Salk cured polio by following his passions and talents, and then he gave away the vaccine to the world without patent. He became the change in the world he wanted to see. Hell, there are no rules here. We're trying to accomplish something. Thomas Edison. And what are we really technically teaching kids today? Are we producing the next Edison, Ford, or Tesla?
No.
Or are we producing kids that will someday be held at war crimes tribunals saying that they were just technically following orders? The other problem with this technical line of thinking is that it gives humans the arrogant view that they can manipulate nature and ultimately others into our own personal utopia, never seeing the fact that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Keynesian economics is of this technical line of thought, and that has been drilled into our heads that we can manipulate the world by just pulling enough economic levers. All of the technical progress we have made in war, communication, finance, government, and consumer gadgets are worthless if those lives that are building, consuming, and dying for these goods are soulless creatures who do not think for themselves. And what is the result of all this technical thinkers manipulating our world? We have rigged the world to blow with massive financial fraud that will technically end the world as we know it. And for what? Do we technically live better than we did 50 years ago? And by what measure? Happiness, obesity, education, divorce? We need the ability to ask why we do things and not how to technically do things. Maybe then we can ask why we should even build a hypersonic bomb. Does it make the world better? Who does it benefit? How are these resources better used? And do we even have the right to take from some to destroy others? Without a greater sense of life behind our technical actions, we will continue this painful existence on Earth. You cannot change the outside world and become free or happy. You must change yourself to become free and happy. False flag operations are covert operations designed to deceive the public in order to make an attack look like some outside force carrying it out. This gives a nation the ability to start a war and make it look like they were the victims. This is very important if the public does not want war, and it also limits the ability for opposing interests to stop the new war. Any opposition, foreign or domestic, would immediately be put in the same category as those that they claim did the false flag.
You're either with us or you're with the enemy.
False flags do not happen very often, but when they do, they change the paradigm we operate in. We all see how the world has been changed forever after 9/11. Before 9/11, we would not have put up with such a loss of privacy and a loss of liberty, much less a decade of war looking for weapons of mass destruction for men in caves.
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere. Nope, no weapons over there.
Not right now, but I want, yeah, right now with the Sabbath.
Maybe under here.
With the supposed death of Osama bin Laden and the supposed end of military actions in Iraq, I feel the decks are cleared for the next big event. Historically, false flags are military in nature, but I feel going forward they will morph into something much worse. Every system built on debt needs constant debt to be created, or the system implodes. If the criminal elite can expand the debt system through asset bubbles, then all is well. But what happens if they can't get more debt created? They need to either steal other assets to provide capital for the system, or they need a reason to create massive debts that the masses will sacrifice for. Wars do both. With war, the criminal elite can confiscate the natural resources of other nations and provide the context to create massive amount of new debt. Our paradigm is failing, and there is no fixing it. There is so much inequity built into the system at every level. The only answer is for a complete collapse. This collapse will leave a generational scar so large that humanity might never consider again fractional reserve banking or the war machine it enables. Until that collapse, the criminal elite will do what they've always done: create more debt and more wars. The criminal elite see their power paradigm collapsing on its own cancerous self. A silver default, debt ceiling doom, dollar collapse, peak oil, or whatever leads ultimately to the end of the Anglo-American petrodollar financial paradigm. The Anglo-American elite might need to pull off 3 false flags in order to fail forward. This might include the typical military false flag, an economic false flag, and an informational false flag. These dramatic measures will seem necessary to the criminal elite, and the horrific toll on humanity will be justified in their minds. This societal upheaval will be time for the criminal elite to settle all the threats to their power paradigm, much like the end of Godfather 1. The first of the three threats to their power is the death of the dollar. The dollar is the basis of all the criminal elite's power. Without it, or an equivalent of it, they have no means to create debt that enslaves nations, states, corporations, and citizens of the world. This debt money provides the criminal elite an unlimited checkbook to fund the world's most powerful military that controls the world's natural resources so that their corporations can harvest them. It also protects the shipping lanes that transports the rest of the world's trade. This debt money also buys political power for which the elite rig the game in their favor. And finally, the criminal elite use their money to own all the major media in order to distract the masses from the real problem in the world, the debt-based banking system, and the paradigm in finances. It is no secret that the dollar is going to die. It is a mathematical inevitability. Nothing can stop the ultimate collapse of the dollar. Our monetary system is based on debt, and in order for it to work, more debt needs to be created every year in excess of the debt and interest accrued the year before. If it does not happen, there will be a massive wave of defaults that would suck the system dry in a few weeks. The elite don't necessarily care if the dollar lives or dies. They just want to control the world's currency. They would ultimately like to have a global international currency that would be far away from pesky national politicians. So if the dollar is doomed, how can the criminal elite fail forward? They can create a financial crisis so incredible that desperate people would beg the elite to make the pain stop. They did this in 1907 to set the stage for the Federal Reserve. They did this in 2008 when they held up America for $700 billion. They will do it again and use the line of stability as the main reason why we should accept their new corrupt plan. I don't think that they could pull off something this large without a much larger distraction to silence the masses. The only thing big enough to scare the masses under the protective hug of the elite is another world war. This war can put an end to another threat of the current world order, the anti-hegemon. Non-Anglo-American nations like China, Russia, Iran, Venezuela, among others, have been gaining an incredible amount of power. I call these group of non-Anglo-American powers the anti-hegemon, as they have no uniting ideology, race, or religion, other than standing in opposition to the hegemonic power of the Anglo-American Empire. The anti-hegemon nations have so much to gain from a retreat of the Anglo-American Empire from the world stage. Countries like China, Russia, Iran, Venezuela, India, and many more, to a lesser extent like Japan, Korea, Germany, and France, have been on the losing end of the Anglo-American Empire for over a century. These nations have a history of Anglo-American losses like the Cold War, Opium Wars, Operation Ajax, the CIA attempted coup of Chavez, British colonization of India, apartheid, Hiroshima, the closing of the gold window by Nixon, and Waterloo. These are only some of the examples the Anglo-American elite have used in the past to ensure their supremacy. The Anglo-American elite have used every form of deceit to change or cheat the rules in pursuit of world domination. I believe the most likely event for a military false flag will be an American ship sunk in the Strait of Hormuz, supposedly by the Iranians. In order to understand this, it is imperative to understand the petrodollar. After Nixon took the dollar off the international gold standard, the Anglo-American elite devised a way to back the dollar with oil. Without going into too much detail, the plan was simply for their Arab partners to raise the price of oil dramatically and only sell their oil for dollars. They would then recycle all of those dollars back into the Anglo-American financial centers. So if you ever wondered why the Arab nations that called us the Great Satan gave us all their dollars, you now know why. The defense of this petrodollar standard has led us to invade Iraq when Saddam Hussein sold oil for euros, and Gaddafi in Libya when he proposed that he and other nations sell their oil for the new gold dinar. This is also why so many sanctions have been put onto Iran. The Iranians opened up their oil bores in 2008 to sell their oil for anything but the dollar. An attack on an American warship would be exactly what Dick Cheney plotted to do in 2008 before he left office. Here is an insider's account of that meeting from the famed journalist Seymour Hersh.
That a few weeks later, a meeting took place in the vice president's office. Quote, the subject was how to create a casus belli between Tehran and Washington, he said. What you're writing there is that Cheney, there was a meeting in the White House where Cheney presided over, looking to cook up the next war. A false war based on false intelligence.
Among the items considered and rejected, which is why the New Yorker did not publish it on grounds that it wasn't accepted. One of the items was, why not, there was a dozen ideas offered. out of trigger war. The one that interested me the most was, why don't we in our shipyard build 4 or 5 Iranian boats that look like Iranian PT boats, put Navy SEALs on them, with a lot of arms, and the next time one of our boats goes to the Straits of Hormuz, start a shoot-up. Might cost some lives. And it was rejected because we can't have Americans killing America. But that's the level of stuff we were talking about, provocation.
I don't even think that it necessarily be an American that pulls off this attack on the American ship. If you look at who's been pushing for a war with Iran the most, it is Israel, and the neocons that got us into the last war. They proudly talk about how they get us to fight their wars. Here's a clip of Israeli President Benjamin Netanyahu talking about their secret weapon.
But I'll tell you one thing, unlike America, Israel seems to be able to fight wars very quickly. What is your secret? Because we don't seem to have the hang of that.
The secret is that we have America. America, see, the point is Israel.
If you think that that was just a slip, please look into Project for a New American Century or the 1967 USS Liberty incident, where unmarked Israeli planes attacked and nearly sunk the most decorated ship in our fleet with the purpose of getting the United States to attack Egypt.
I frankly think that crisis initiation is really tough. And it's very hard for me to see how the United States president can get us to war again. Which leads me to conclude that if, in fact, compromise is not coming, that the traditional way of America gets to war is what would be best for its interests. Some people might think that Mr. Roosevelt wanted to get us into World War II, as David mentioned. You may recall we had to wait for Pearl Harbor. Some people might think Mr. Wilson wanted to get us into World War I. You may recall he had to wait for the Lusitania episode. Some people might think that Mr. Johnson wanted to send troops to Vietnam. You may recall they had to wait for the Tonkin episode. We didn't go to war with Spain until the until the Maine was built.
Delightful in Cuba, stop. Could send you prose poems about scenery, but don't feel right spending your money. Stop. There is no war in Cuba. Signed, Wheeler. Any answers?
Yes, dear Wheeler, you provide the prose poems.
That's good.
And may I point out that Mr. Lincoln did not feel he could call out the Federal Army until Fort Sumter was attacked, which is why he ordered the commander of Fort Sumter to do exactly that thing which the South Carolinians had said would cause an attack. So if, in fact, the Iranians aren't going to compromise, it would be best if somebody else started the war. One can combine other means of pressure with sanctions. I mentioned that explosion on August 17th. We could step up the pressure. I mean, look, people, Iranian submarines periodically go down. Someday one of them might not come up. Who would know why? We can do a variety of things if we wish to increase the pressure.
There was a dozen ideas popping out of trigger war. The one that interested me the most was, why don't we in our shipyard build 4 or 5 Iranian boats that look like Iranian PT boats, put Navy SEALs on them, with a lot of arms, and the next time one of our boats goes to the Straits of Hormuz, start a shoot-up.
But I'm just suggesting that this is not a either-or proposition. You know, it's just sanctions has to succeed or other things. We are in the game of using covert means against the Iranians. We could get nasty with it.
A false flag attack, like an American ship sunk in the Strait of Hormuz, would also keep Iranian allies like Russia and China at bay, much like the 9/11 attacks kept them from using their power to stop the United States from invading Iraq. The world is a much different place than it was in 2000, and China and Russia have learned a lot, as they have been vocal opponents of many of the pressures the Anglo-American empire has applied to Iran. If China does rise in opposition, that would be something the Anglo-Americans could easily turn the American public onto them too. Our horrible economic conditions are directly responsible to those that own and control our paradigm, the criminal elite in Washington and Wall Street. That being said, the criminal elite will blame all of the problems on anything else in the world except for them. Yep. China could have purposely been made into a threat only to take them down in the future. Let me first state that I am no fan of China. Their elite have human rights violations against their own citizens that would make you sick to your stomach. But let's be honest, China would not be a threat if our criminal elite did not build them up in the first place. Our military-industrial complex needs an enemy to justify their war machine. The war on terror era was a good ride, but after almost a decade, it's getting a little old. Our banking system needed another country to buy our paper Ponzi scheme, and China became the most obvious target after Japan gorged itself on our debt. Our elites made deals with the Chinese elites to move our manufacturing overseas to use their slave labor and pollute their environment. The Chinese communists got all the technology, manufacturing, and dollars to build up China as a threat. Our elite did this to make tremendous profits and keep the dollar paradigm going. But in the end, I believe that our criminal elite may use China to be the next enemy in a paradigm-shifting war. Since China has now said no more American debt, the Federal Reserve has stepped up as the buyer of last resort. This has bought us some time, but there's a huge economic difference of recycling dollars already in circulation, like the Chinese dollars, than freshly printed ones like that from the Federal Reserve. The Anglo-American elite must solve tRUtH's dilemma, where a world currency reaches its apex and must be allowed to default, but somehow not drag down the rest of the world with it. The elite have been trying to get regional and ultimately global currencies in place to solve this dilemma. Now, no nation is going to give up their power to create money, especially now that we're looking at the euro imploding. The only option, I feel, is to do it the old-fashioned way, through war. The only thing the United States is really good at now is exporting debt and bombs. There's way too much at stake for our elite to just silently walk away into the night without a fight. They are trying to keep things going by now fighting 4, 5, 6 wars in the oil-rich Middle East and North Africa region. But the writing is on the wall. The debt ceiling will continue to be raised, and money and debt will be created, and the war machine will continue to churn. This will not end because the elite will say, we can't do this anymore. If anything, history has shown that when the chips are down on the table, they will double down and go off to war. The destruction of the dollar will either be the cause for, or war will be the destruction of the dollar. If there is an economic false flag, like a massive treasury sell-off, then it could be a cause of war with China. Or if there's a military false flag, it will cause the dollar's destruction and forced introduction of a new monetary paradigm, possibly a global currency. The elite will use this upheaval to destroy any competitors. In the smoking aftermath of the war, they will impose a new paradigm based off of the same destructive seeds of the old paradigm. There is a third threat to the elite's power paradigm that can and should stop all of this. Freedom of information. There is no doubt the internet has gotten away from the criminal elite and that their lies have been exposed.
As the #1 national hazard of attack on the homeland in West Virginia, in America, or anywhere else. So, I mean, it really almost makes you ask the question, would it have been better if we never invented the internet and had to use paper and pencil or whatever? And that's a stupid thing to say, but it has genuine consequence, because it's on the internet that these acts of shutting down, they have the television saying that ads every day saying that the Department of Defense is attacked 3 million times a day, and it's true. Everybody is attacked. Anybody can do it. People say, well, it's China and Russia, but there could be some kid in Latvia doing the same thing.
Small sites all over the internet have shown over and over again that the emperor has no clothes. I can see an informational false flag to coincide with the economic and military false flag. They can falsely blame China or domestic groups like Anonymous for massive internet shutdowns. I believe that big corporations will still have a functioning internet, but small informational sites will be shut down for sake of quote-unquote national security. Perhaps it could even be something much worse, where they shut down all free speech and opposition for the sake of national security.
I have long advocated that individuals walk away from any collectivist answer that's thrown out there. I warned people against the Tea Party, saying that they would be infiltrated, subverted, and destroyed, and they were. I warned people against Occupy Wall Street, saying our attacks. I've advocated individuals walking away from the system because we empower them. They do not control us. I feel that we're entering a new era where the criminal elite are now going after individual voices out there. When we stop emotionally worrying about things outside of our control and start logically working on the things inside of our life, we'll find more improvement, more empowerment, and better people who support us. This is truly the opposite consciousness solution that we're looking for. I feel that there's a subversive, secretive move by the government or the criminal elite to silence voices of truth. If you look at the persecution of people like Julian Assange, Bradley Manning, Ed Snowden, all people that took tremendous risks to their own personal life for us to learn the truth. Then we saw the very mysterious deaths of Andrew Breitbart.
I've got videos. This election, we're going to vet him.
from his college days to show you why racial division and class warfare are central to what Hope and Change was sold in 2008.
I have always sensed the Obama birth certificate movement was a grand distraction and soon found out why. Now, there is no doubt in my mind that Frank Marshall Davis is the real father of Barack Hussein Obama. As if the timing and the nature of their relationship from the nude Christmas photos weren't enough. Barack Obama's physical similarities are striking to Frank Marshall Davis, and Barack looks nothing like his supposed Kenyan father. Obama has Ann Dunham's long chin, but his eyes, nose, mouth, age spots an exact type of Frank Marshall Davis. And Michael Hastings.
It's not fun to have your 2-ton SUV's brakes hacked just as you're parking in front of the ditch.
Both of which were about to expose something the criminal elite did not want out.
Celebrated computer hacker Barnaby Jack died on July 25th. What makes this so strange, along with the Michael Hastings death, is Jack, who is most commonly known as the hacker who could force bank ATMs to spit out cash, was a genius at finding bugs in the tiny computers embedded in equipment such as medical devices and the aforementioned banking machines. The San Francisco Medical Examiner's Office gave no details on his death, but Jack was due to present his findings on the security vulnerabilities of implanted medical devices at the Black Hat Conference in Vegas. It was claimed that Jack had discovered a way to induce a heart attack in anyone with implanted heart devices, pacemakers, as you see here, from up to 30 feet away.
Now I feel that they're moving into another zone, and I believe Cass Sunstein is the intellectual father behind this. Cass Sunstein has been a longtime confidant of Barack Obama. In 2008, while at Harvard Law School, Cass Sunstein co-wrote a paper that proposed that the United States government employ teams of covert agents and pseudo-independent advocates to cognitively infiltrate online groups and websites, as well as other activist groups, and any other group that Cass Sunstein deems false conspiracy theories about the government. Cass Sunstein advocates that the government's stealth infiltration should be accomplished by sending covert agents into chat rooms, online social networks, and even in real space groups. He proposed that the government take secret payments to so-called independent credible voices to bolster the government's messaging. This program would target those advocating quote-unquote false conspiracy theories, which they define to mean an attempt to explain an event or practice by reference to the machinations of a powerful people who have managed to conceal their role. Now, there's no evidence that they actually are doing this, but all the little stories that I'm gathering around are all starting to make me think that this is actually happening. Look at the failed setups of Luke Rudowski.
I'm making this video primarily for my safety, but to also possibly safeguard you from being set up. And just a few hours ago, I received an email on my old private high school email, not my work email, not my We Are Change email, but my old high school email. And the email was from an unknown client. It was from a Tor email server, and it had an attachment, and it said something about a leak. Now, automatically knowing this, I had to find a new laptop. I found another laptop that was connected to me, and I looked into this email. The email specifically stated that this person that was sending me this email was a whistleblower, was a leaker that actually attended the 2013 Bilderberg meeting, that he had raw JPEG pictures of everything that happened, of the attendees, and he wanted us to have the exclusive. He told us to download these pictures and to break the story for the world and show everybody what happened. Now, obviously I was interested, and I scrolled down. Now, luckily, Yahoo email servers actually let you preview pictures before downloading them, and when I scrolled down, I actually saw graphic, horrible, inhumane pictures of child pornography.
And Stuart Rhodes of Oath Keepers.
What happened is last night, somebody using a Tor mail account impersonated me, emailed Dan Johnson, and in the email it said, hey, I've got new resolutions for you that a team of lawyers and I put together, and here they are, there's PDF attachments. Dan saw it was a Tormail account, realized it wasn't really for me, and did not open the attachments. But he did consult his security expert, and he was able to determine that there are any PDFs embedded inside of them were child pornography. And so what this was is someone was trying to get Dan to open up these PDFs and download child porn onto his computer. And so that was a direct attack on him, but also attack on me because it purported to be from me. It had my name embedded and Oathkeeper's name embedded in the files.
Both received child pornography through an email. And you know, this is like the lowest of the low attack when you have people trying to set other people up and, you know, attack their character. You know, these are truth tellers. And the problem with this is, had they not caught it, had they not come out and spoke about it, they could have very easily been tipped off, had an FBI raid their computers, and then because the way these emails were indexed, it was very easy for the FBI to find it. And now they would be in jail and have their name ruined and cause all sorts of dissension. So I think people need to be very careful about, you know, obviously opening up these things. But if you are confronted by this stuff, you got to speak out. We're reaching an end here where they need to discredit the truth tellers before the next big thing happens. And again, the next big thing is the collapse of the dollar, the single largest event in human history. This low blow tactic is an attempt to discredit the individuals speaking truth because they cannot attack the truth itself. He who passively accepts evil is as much involved in it as he who helps to perpetuate it. Dr. Martin Luther King. And one other thing, listen, our entire structure for the last 10 years has been focused on this fake war on terror, you know, the military-industrial complex, getting all these Americans to go out and essentially kill brown people halfway across the world that we'll never see. Now that they know the collapse is coming, they want to do something. They have to be able to control the motherland here, or the fatherland, or whatever, homeland, whatever collectivist name that they want to put on here. And I think it's going to cause massive dissension, and I don't think it's going to go very far. I'm not going to say that we're all going to end up in FEMA camps and stuff like that, because I think that the people that passively put up with the debt and death paradigm when it was, you know, brown people across the world, and, you know,
everybody. There's a whole bunch of people.
You know, Manning and Snowden and all these guys, they're not the bad guys. You know, they're the ones that are actually speaking out and taking tremendous pains going forward and speaking out. It's not easy for me to speak out. The easiest thing for me to be would just go off and go do something else. But when people start realizing, especially inside to make the machine work, realize that this isn't what they signed up for. They may have signed up for to avenge 9/11, even though that was a total, you know, false flag event. But the more that they try to do acts like this, the more that there's people inside the system that are going to say, not for me, and walk away, and expose, and whistleblow. And I think that's ultimately what's going to bring down the system when people stop actively or passively supporting it. The people are waking up and they're far too clever to see through online trolls. So now they're resorting to sending child pornography in order to discredit the movement. As the days get closer to a financial collapse, I've always encouraged people to listen to all and follow none. I feel that there's going to be a lot of voices out there that are working to gain your trust, so at the time when everything is on the line, that they'll have enough credibility to steer you down the wrong path.
You have never had more solid evidence that Alex Jones is working for the bad guys than right here, right now.
But I had to hang up on the guy and delay him now, because there's no point in letting him put out his COINTELPRO. What's COINTELPRO? According to FBI records, COINTELPRO resources were expended on infiltrating, disrupting, marginalizing, and/or subverting groups suspected of being subversive. I can't tell you how many times I've just gone to any political event.
Constantly put on the defensive against the federal government. Every single time, be it the FCC coming to town and trying to shut down our local micro broadcaster, be it the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration coming to town and trying to shut down and train the police officers to do blood withdrawals, be it the DATF now.
That's an example of COINTELPRO.
But the good news is we fixed it, and I have a surprise for you. Making it to the finals, a personal favorite of mine.
for COINTELPRO.
You are not going to get away with your activities. You are not going to get away. Hey, ladies, the Second First Amendment. Get the hell out of my face. I'm going to tell you right now that we are not your property. You're not part of the team. You're not part of the team.
I mean, I almost started crying last night when I was at that demonstration, and I saw these families bringing their children up to me for me to shake their hand, and I just look at their innocence.
He's trying to take over our rally that a lot of people worked on.
Is that once they cause all the infighting and division and problems, then everyone spends their time on that, and then you can't expand your organizations. And every time I go to a big city and see provocateurs, I've seen it in Austin.
I gotta live.
Creating racial division, infiltrating groups, trying to radicalize, trying to get people to commit acts of violence so they can put them in prison. And we're going to rouse and rise for humanity to identify who you are, and as you wage war against us, 1776!
And I show the clips of all these guys who were obviously listening to Alex Jones going, oh, if Obama does that, I'm going to be the first one to fire the shot.
I'm telling you that if that happens, it's going to spark a civil war, and I'll be glad to fire the first shot. If it goes 1 inch further, I'm going to start killing people.
And then you got the guys that were over at the Bundy Ranch who actually murdered cops and put gas and flags on the dead bodies and said that this is the beginning of a revolution.
The suspects pulled the officers out of the booth and onto the ground, where they placed a Gadsden flag, which is a "Don't Tread on Me" yellow flag on the body of Officer Beck. They also threw a swastika on top of his body.
Jared Miller then pinned a note to one of the officers' bodies announcing that this was, quote, the beginning of the revolution.
1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms.
You have never had more solid evidence that Alex Jones is working for the bad guys than right here, right now. Because what he's doing, he's going to a peaceful rally. He's trying to stir up violence.
They want to radicalize mainline libertarians, conservatives, so we can be politically demonized, so we don't become mainstream and take our country back. You know what it's like to go to sleep every night knowing you work for a bunch of psychotic killers and you bastards are probably going to end up killing me one day? You know what it's like knowing you've ruined my life? You know what it's like? You sons of bitches! I'm tired of your crap! When they bust a cap in my head, can you imagine what's going to happen? That's their plan.
Number one. Number two, it gets us divided amongst ourselves.
The reason I know is my dad came to the protest, and I didn't notice him. Because the whole time I was there, I had like COINTELPRO poking me and getting in my face. They send in people to cause violence. They spread lies about you.
We wanted to give you a speaking flag, but instead of working with us, and you're going to be yelling at
That's a diversion. That's a diversion. Pure diversion. Wow. That's guilty. If you're not, that's guilty. That's guilty.
And now you are acting like for some reason you come in here and climb right on top of us.
Don't worry. Like COINTEL. Exactly like COINTEL.
It's pretty awesome. So you should be lifting us up and empowering us instead of holding us.
I wasn't lifted up or empowered.
When you see them demonizing people like Ron Paul, myself, and others, you know it is a COINTELPRO operation. We, the patriots, the constitutionalists, we're the good guys. We're trying to save the republic. And anybody that stands against that is a treasonous, traitorous, larcenous enemy of humanity. Period.
Either you're with us or you're with the enemy. There's no in between. You're with us or you're with the enemy. That's clear.
But getting back to COINTELPRO, infiltrate your group, and we need to incite violence to run off reasonable pacifists in your group, and so we can have you arrested and, quote, break up your group. They also want to radicalize the message.
This is in preparation for the financial collapse and maybe even Obama not leaving office. I mean, I'm telling you, this is so huge.
There is a massive program No exaggeration, it's got to be 50 times bigger than the Manhattan Project. They're training to come to our houses and kill us. They're training to attack and beat and arrest and shoot and kill patriots.
Get up! Get moving! Get moving, soldier! Defend the Republic! No! You had to move it! No! She was the one that can't! Yeah, no! She was the one that can't! She was the one that can't!
You know you are good. You know listening that you're not COINTELPRO, because that's how COINTELPRO works so well. I'm the real thing. Do you have any discernment out there? Now they're going to kill all of us. How they're going to accelerate the soft kill. I recognize you for what you are. You filthy trash. And I am here to energize the human spirit.
Oh, I'm good. That's why I put it up. I wouldn't know.
Who else is at
I hope I was looking at you said that down there. Oh, shit, I put it on time for a reason. It's going to tickle me.
Who else? We have to go to the next level, and we have to be strong. In case, knock on wood, we get sued. In case I get killed or imprisoned, this operation's got to continue. And that radiation is coming towards the United States. Fox News, AP, AccuWeather. You know how creepy it is to know I'm right? See, I got the sunglasses, pal. Nauseous smell of burning flesh. Nearly ill. It's pathetic. Criminal scum. You filthy, degenerate scumbag. You are assaulting me. I know what's going on. This is normal. I am primitive. I am angry. I am violent. We are in vogue as men. Just cracking your brains out. You didn't know about that? Raping your daughter. They want you in the ditch. You do what we say or die. Tall theater, ladies and gentlemen.
I believe ultimately a wide-awake humanity will put an end to all these forms of treachery. We have the benefit of seeing the same playbook over and over again throughout history. And if they do try another false flag, it is imperative that we question the perceived reality and wake humanity up before we get marched off to another war. Our job is not necessarily to fight this evil. We only need to expose evil so it will cease to have power. The real challenge is to show people that the good that they think they are doing is really evil, and they will no longer do it. We need to convince our fellow citizens that death and war are evil, and we need to rid this scourge from humanity once and for all. The timing and order of all this is unknown, but just know that it's going to get dramatically worse before it gets any better. Every 80 years or so, a paradigm dies and a new one is born out of the ashes of the old. 80 years ago, we had the Great Depression, and this was the creation of our current paradigm. 80 years before that, we had the Civil War, and 80 years before that, we had the Revolutionary War. So far, the United States has survived and gone on to become a global global superpower. This time around, we have the possibility of a revolutionary
told I
war,
couldn't hold
a
it
civil
up.
war,
You want to show
world
the type
war,
of power
or a combination of all three.
I
There's
got.
nothing in writing that says America will go on forever. In fact, given our horrible record on debt and war, this system deserves to die
Cool to do, man.
so that humanity will never
I know
go
it's
back
in the
down
game
that
and
path again.
everything.
Only then can we go about
But I guarantee you, it wasn't nothing but little kids that did that
who
shit.
we are.
I'm just saying.